For the case for rhetoric, instead of going essay by essay, I am going to do that for the first essay, An Engineer's Rhetorical Journey. And after that, I'm going to talk about some of the common threads these essays have. I'll talk a little about the history of rhetoric, classical rhetoric, and then I'm going to talk about how all these apply uh, as rhetoric of science, specifically to the theorizing of the structure of the atom in the mid-19th to early 20th century and the role that metaphor and analogy played. So these will make the most sense if you review these in this order, with this one first, then the one on classical rhetoric, and then the one on the structure of the atom. Now, with the first essay, I think it is a good one to start with. Something I don't think I'd mentioned, that if you're interested in who these people are who have written these essays, there is a section in the back that has a brief biography just in terms of who they are and what they publish and what their interests are. And if you look at the back, you'll see that this Richard Burton, he's not the actor who was popular in the 1950s and 1960s. This Richard Burton was an engineering professor, and he also served as an administrator at the University of Saskatchewan, where the author, and editor of your text teaches. And so it's interesting. He had the experience of actually teaching rhetoric in the shape of a writing course as part of his experience of being teaching at a university, and it is eye-opening for people who have never done that before. When I was teaching at the University of Minnesota, a story that was going around at that time was that an assistant or an associate dean wanted to pay a very small amount of money for people who were teaching part-time in what was in the Department of Rhetoric, Scientific, and Technical Communication. And the department chair said, well, if you think it's so easy, why don't you try it? And this dean was taken a bit aback, but she did try it, and after she did it, the price for part-time people went up to like $5,000 per class, which is pretty good. I mean, $2,500, $3,000 is usually what they pay for part-time people per class. But it was an exceptionally good rate because this person at the University of Minnesota tried it. And so Richard Burton went through a similar type of experience where he actually taught rhetoric and writing and so forth as part of his experience. Now, he also makes some other observations. At the second bullet point, that one in itself is interesting because it seems to suggest is that perhaps one reason why engineering has a reputation of the writing being so poorly written and difficult to understand is if you're not clear, then people aren't going to question what you're doing. It's going to be less trouble in a way. But actually, the point really of publishing and of doing conference presentations and things like that is to get feedback on your work so that you can make it better. And anybody who would use the writing and the presenting and publishing process for anything else would really be doing himself or herself a disfavor. So then he also makes the comment that people who can't actually explain something don't really understand it, and I've turned that on people before myself who say, "Oh, I can't explain it to you. I know, but I just can't explain." And I said, "Well, if you really understood it, you'd be able to explain it." Now, granted, sometimes there are portions of a process that a scientist or an engineer may understand mathematically, or the mathematics gives it more meaning or a different kind of meaning. And so, in understanding the mathematics, you would have to understand, you know, calculus or something like that. Very often, engineering students have to take, a half dozen calculus classes. They take so many that even though they don't technically have minors, the way that we do in the liberal arts, they take so many math courses that it may as well be a math minor that they have to take. You do have the occasional student who starts their undergraduate degree having already taken enough so that it frees up a lot of their times for electives. And there was a young man at Georgia Southern like that a few years ago. I actually got involved in the undergraduate leadership program because he had so much calculus for, I think it was electrical engineering. He didn't need to take the courses. Burton also makes that observation about the template-driven approach. This is something that I personally find objectionable about providing rubrics for writing. I think it limits what people will do. It does contribute to a standardized, one-size-fit-all, cookie-cutter structure, and I myself don't think rubrics are appropriate for college writing at any level. And then again, we come. Burton also mentions that idea of dumbing down, and that it's actually being the writer's job to communicate clearly. And that's similar to another thought that we had last week. Questions? I'll see you online.